All right, we are live. Hey everyone, welcome in. This is our monthly pet Q&A. We are so excited to have you here. My name is Jordan Swain. I am the customer service manager here at Real Mushrooms, and I am someone that some of you may be talking to from time to time. So if you have talked to me, welcome in. If you haven't, welcome in. I'm going to pass it off to Joni and Rob. Joni is our veterinary outreach and education expert, and Rob is our chief veterinary officer. So I'm going to pass it off to you guys, and let's get this started.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thank you, Super Jordan. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our monthly Facebook Live. We're so glad you're here. Hey, Doc Rob. It's good to see you.
And a while.
Yeah, it's about 30 minutes since we just finished doing a lunch and learn, a presentation for a vet office. We'll be doing another one tomorrow, but tonight we're with you guys, and we always start with a topic, that maybe we've gotten some questions about, and then we move on to just any questions or answers, any questions you have, any answers you have too. But something that's coming up quite often is questions about mushrooms and yeast issues. Like if a pet has a yeast issue or even a fungal infection, there's some misconceptions out there about mushrooms and whether they work well with these issues or whether they're to be avoided. So, Doc Rob, what say you?
Well, the confusion starts by the fact that both mushrooms and yeast are in the same fungal kingdom, and so the thinking is maybe they all function the same, which is not true. The other part of confusion is that people confuse the yeast that is a problem in dogs with the yeast that's a problem in people, because the yeast that's a problem in people is candida, and most commonly it happens in the bowel with an overgrowth, dysbiosis affecting the microbiome. With dogs, the yeast is actually on the skin, but the yeast on the skin is strongly affected by the quality of the microbiome as well as by the diet you eat. In fact, the diet you eat also strongly affects the microbiome. So when the microbiomes, and we see this with so many skin conditions, skin allergies and things like that, there's so many ways that the food and our bowel affect our skin. When I would explain this to clients in my exam room, I kind of use this image of a hot dog. And, when you talk about how the body works, when you think about it, the outside skin really goes completely around and inside our bowel. So it's really the same tissue, just different functions. And so it's like a hot dog. You push the hot dog in from either end, and the skin is on the inside, which is the lining of the bowel. So mushrooms actually can help with yeast issues, but it's more than just using a mushroom for the yeast issues. It's a whole not complicated, but complex protocol that involves looking at the diet, looking at adding supplements to support the microbiome, and helping to improve immune system function. And mushrooms can do two of those. And of course, mushrooms are a food as well, but mushrooms have a lot of fiber in them. And this is a very special fiber that supports the microbiome. Plus, the mushrooms have these beta-glucans, and these beta-glucans support the immune system in the bowel. So it's really a perfect marriage, using a mushroom for yeasty conditions on the skin. Of course, there's a lot more we need to do than just taking a mushroom, but mushrooms are certainly a very good start.
Yeah. So, but you shouldn't avoid mushrooms, taking mushroom supplements if there's a yeast issue.
Did I say that? No, I didn't mean
that.
But
I just want to confirm.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Mushrooms are advantageous to use when you have any kind of an immune system disorder, which is what this yeast overgrowth on the skin or in the ears or in the paws. Commonly, I would see dogs with that would have food allergies. And I would know they had food allergies because ear problems, interdigital problems, and when I'd scrape the skin, I'd see a bunch of the little yeasty beasties that they'd have,
Yeah, no, I just want to make it crystal clear because, I hear it quite often that it should be avoided. And so absolutely not. They can be helpful. Can you suggest maybe some other things that might help in addition? Well, you said diet. Are there anything else specifically, or does it really?
not just well, I mean, you need to be able to select food that doesn't
Mhm.
adversely affect
Yeah,
your immune system. So that's where we get into doing testing, and the saliva testing
yeah,
that Gene Dodd set up is really the best, the
right.
NutriScan,
The
because
NutriScan, right.
it measures two types of antibodies as compared to the blood test.
Yeah.
And then looking at supplements, things like glutamine, for instance.
Mhm.
Of course,
Yep.
probiotics like Saccharomyces boulardii, or
Yes.
some other good types of probiotics,
Yep.
prebiotics will help improve the bowel, the integrity of the bowel, the leaky gut that we see,
Yeah.
which is part of what creates this
Yeah.
condition. I think
Potentially even, like digestive enzymes, you think as well? Yeah, would also be.
enzymes, the things that we need to improve digestive
Yeah.
function,
Yep.
probiotics, digestive enzymes, and the appropriate herbs as well. And
Yeah.
sometimes there's a lot of inflammation in the bowel, so we need to use anti-inflammatory herbs that can help there as well. And deal with the symptoms. If there's diarrhea, we need to deal with that. If there's constipation, need to use the appropriate herbs for those conditions.
Yep. And Tracy's asking, well, I don't know if Tracy is asking, what mushrooms do you recommend to give to dogs? Do you mean what mushrooms do you recommend to give to dogs for yeast issues, or just in general? I'm gonna. Should we just that's kind of a very wide-ranging question, Tracy. Are you still
You can take it or I'll take it. Rock, paper,
there?
scissors. Yeah. So, so really, in general, in general, Tracy,
Great.
really any medicinal mushroom or edible mushroom can be given to a dog, and it will help to improve their immune system and have many, many benefits. Specific mushrooms can have more specific benefits, and that's where we have to get kind of more detailed in it. And that's one reason why we have this Q&A, because it helps to answer, specific questions about specific problems with specific mushrooms.
Yeah.
So, not wanting to be, and so oftentimes we find that the best, unless you have a really specific complaint in the dog, that the best mushroom is really a blend of several mushrooms together, because you get this sort of shotgun effect. You get, multiple benefits from each of those working together synergistically. So we can talk about products here, can't we? This is,
Yeah, sure.
Q&A. So I just want to do the right thing. So
we always talk about Five Defenders on Facebook Live.
I'll see you in a moment. So the Five Defenders is our blend, and I've replicated that in the immune mushroom chews. And it has 5 different mushrooms, 5 of the most potent immune modulating mushrooms. It's got a reishi and turkey tail and chaga and maitake and shiitake in a very nice blend. And we have it in capsules, we have it in powder form, we have it in soft chew. So if you're just looking for one thing to give, there's no specific complaints, that's a good place to speak.
Yeah. So Tracy, that blended mushroom, that's what Doc Silver was talking about. It's a blended mushroom product, and it's called the Five Defenders. And Jordan just posted.
There's some links there.
Yeah, the Five Defenders is in the chews, and the immune chews is in the base of the Five Defenders. And then we also have the Five Defenders in a capsule for pets as well. And
one of those links, Jordan, both links are for the chews, aren't they? So
I think they are.
The capsules in there too, please.
Yeah. I'm sure she's working on it. Hey, Jannell. So Jannell is mentioning that she cuts up organic shiitake mushrooms for her dog's bone broth. And then puts mushrooms in the last 12 hours. That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. You can put them in for the whole 24 hours. It may even be advantageous, to release more of the goodies. What are your thoughts, Joni?
Yeah, no, I love bone broth. I'm a big fan of bone broth. I think it's a wonderful way to get, wonderful minerals in your dogs and collagen. It's great for older dogs. It's great for, for joints. And I love putting the mushrooms in. Also, sometimes I'll put some turmeric in there as well. But yeah, absolutely. And the longer they cook in there, the better, right?
Yes, truly. Yeah, so like a bone broth stew type of thing is really the ideal place to put mushrooms in your pet's food, or you could certainly add our mushroom extracts to it as well to kind of, as a shortcut. But really, there's nothing like the whole mushroom.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, Tracy's asking, can I give the 5 Defenders daily to my dog and myself? Absolutely.
I take it.
Yeah. The 5 Defenders is a great product. And just so y'all know, like the pet products are the exact same mushrooms. Like it's not like our pet version of the Real Mushrooms products are a lower quality or anything like that. It's the exact same ingredients, the exact same mushroom extracts are in the pet product as are in what we call the human product. Doc Silver just made the capsules smaller so that they're easier to get into your pet, particularly cats. And he wrote the dosage, pet dosages on the bottle. So you can, you can get the Real Mushrooms for pets and take those capsules, or the Real Mushrooms for humans, and give them to your pets.
If you're one of those pet parents who read the labels for every single detail, you'll probably see something that says on the label, not for human consumption. And that's not because what's in those capsules is not for human consumption. The FDA requires that animal labeled products actually have that statement on it. So, we want to be in compliance with the FDA.
That's a good thing to remind. Goodness, it looks like the email that they sent out linked to the wrong Facebook Live, but thank goodness people are finding their way here.
Really?
Yeah, apparently so. We'll find out about that later. And so Jannell's dogs are on the 5 Defenders daily. Yes, Tracy, the discount code, if you've never ordered from Real Mushrooms before, it's automatic. When you go online to place your first order, you'll get a discount.
Yeah, it's very good too. It's like
I believe it's like 25% as well for that first time. So it just kind of automatically does that.
Yeah, and you can get both the human-sized product and the pet-sized product all from the same transaction. No problem.
Yeah. And hey, Sandy, welcome. Glad you finally found the comment stream. So I know we got a ton of questions that were sent to us before the Facebook Live. So we're going to start answering some of those. So the first question, does reishi help with the yeast growth? My dog has a yeast growth issue. What mushroom do you suggest giving him, and what foods do you suggest that I don't give him? Well, we went over that a little bit, but we didn't talk about specific mushroom.
I think reishi is a great choice. Yeah. It's probably the most anti-inflammatory of all of the mushrooms because of the strong triterpene content that it has. So I think it's a good choice. I think you could make several good choices when it comes to mushrooms, but certainly reishi is great. And you may not have gotten my comments at the very beginning, but it's impossible to know what the right food is in a dog. We know what foods are anti-inflammatory and this and that, and not gluten-free, but each animal, each person has their own specific reaction or lack of reaction to each food. So I recommend a test you can run. You can it's without your vet, and you can go to nutriscan.org, and maybe many of you have heard of Dr. Jean Dodds. This is her test, and it's a great test. It's a saliva test. You put a piece of rope in the dog's mouth. He salivates on it. You take that slimy rope out and put it in a tube and put it in the mailer and send it back to them, and then they will tell you 24 different foods and all the related foods that might have some immune system reaction. That is really the best way, other than trial and error and elimination diet, which can take a long time. This can be a good way to start an elimination diet, actually.
Yeah, it can be really, really helpful. Absolutely. So I hope that helps answer your question. Jordan, you want to send us the next one? Is it true that giving my dog mushroom extracts along with colostrum powder help defend against Lyme disease? What is your opinion? Searching for a more holistic approach to protect against Lyme.
So I think the question is about prevention versus treatment. And Lyme's disease is a pretty nasty disease.
It is.
And I don't think there's any patent way that has been determined to use supplements or mushrooms to treat it effectively. Maybe there is something that I don't know about.
Right.
So as much as we hate the use of products to prevent ticks from getting on our dogs, sometimes we have to bite the bullet and weigh the choices between the potential of a side effect to let's say a spot-on drop, which does happen, but is relatively low, versus what's going to happen if your dog actually contracts Lyme's disease, and how well is it going to be able to convert to seronegative from that. So everyone has to make choices based on, and some of them are difficult choices based on physical reality of risk. And those are your decisions to make. But for myself, I would recommend the spot-on drops as probably the most effective way. Plus, every day, it says that it takes about 24 hours for the Lyme tick to transmit the rickettsia into the body. So if every time you go out and come back in, you can go over your dog with a fine tooth comb, because the tick that causes Lyme's disease is like a little grain of rice. And if you can detect it and remove it before it infects the dog, then you're also good. But that's very tedious, and you might miss one anyway, especially if it's a long-haired dog. So
yeah.
I know that might be a very might not be a very popular answer, but I think it's the best answer in terms of prevention. And
yeah, no, I agree with you, Doc Robin. Heidi is mentioning that Lyme is viral. Cat's claw is the solution. Not sure if pets can have it. I mean, cat's claw is good, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's.
Yeah, cat's claw is fine. I use that in an inflammatory bowel disease formula. It's a great product if you're using the right type of cat's claw. There's two types. But Lyme's is not a viral disease. It's actually a different type of an organism called a rickettsia, which is kind of like a virus, but different,
Yeah. And there's a lot of, my understanding, you have to be careful with cat's claw because there's a lot of cat's claw on the market that's not actually cat's claw.
Yeah, a lot of adulteration.
Yeah, a lot of adulteration.
The real deal is very.
Oh, yeah, the real deal is great if you can get it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So what is next question? Best mushroom choice for a cat with IBD and a sarcoma? It's a tough one.
Yeah, well, first of all,
cats
are very difficult partners when it comes to treating them, as we know. But that's one reason we love them so much. And so I would have to say my suggestion would be to look at lion's mane as a single mushroom, because it is very palatable and probably palatable to your cat. But who knows? A cat with IBD, tummy may hurt. They may actually be more picky about what they eat. So that is a bigger challenge. And the lion's mane has 25% beta glucans, and the beta glucans we know to be helpful in getting the immune system to deal with the sarcoma. Now, some sarcomas are worse than others, and hopefully this is not one of the bad ones. But regardless, the mushrooms aren't going to work unless we can get it inside the cat.
Yeah.
And so that's why, and lion's mane is actually a very good mushroom for IBD because of its concentration in the bowel, its anti-inflammatory, antioxidant effects. So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah. And it's anti-neoplastic, and it does have anti-cancer, as all mushrooms do.
Mm-hmm.
And so Christy's mentioning that their holistic vet gave them Japanese knotweed, another wonderful herb, after a month of doxycycline for Lymes. So nice combo approach there. Yeah.
Japanese knotweed, a source of resveratrol, I think. Which is a very potent antioxidant, which could be good to help the immune system recover from the doxycycline.
Okay. So Heidi's mentioning Vimmer. I'm not familiar with Vimergy, but apparently they have high quality chaga and also some herbal extracts. They might, I wonder if this might be not in the United States. I've not heard. We get people from all over. Sometimes when I don't recognize the supplement, it's from Canada or England or something else, Australia, whatever. But thanks, Heidi.
Sure.
Yeah. So our next question, are there any mushrooms to help with itching due to allergies?
Well, good question.
Yeah.
There are two mushrooms, Reishi and chaga, which contain terpenes that have an antihistaminic effect. And, the itching is due to the release of the histamine and the other bioactive components that the body releases in reaction to its allergy, which then causes the skin to get all itchy. And in humans, And so the cells that manifest the allergies in dogs are mostly in the skin. In humans, they're mostly in the respiratory tract. So antihistamines, the drugs that we use in humans for upper respiratory allergies, are also used in dogs for itching. And they work to some extent. Itching in a dog can be really hard to manage. I just read 2 studies where they were using CBD to help with that as well. So I would look at the chaga, reishi, because of their antihistaminic effects and because their beta glucans and other terpenes in them improve immune system function. And you might want to try adding some CBD to that if those aren't helping well enough with your dog's itching.
And I want to follow up by saying, of course, our 5 Defenders has both of those in it.
Yes.
And we get a lot of feedback from pet parents that are finding that the 5 Defenders working well for their allergy for allergy symptoms. So you could get the reishi and the chaga separately, or you can do it in the 5 Defenders, and you also will get some turkey tail, shiitake, and maitake in there along with it. Have that nice mushroom synergy.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Next question. I have a healthy 4.5-year-old lab German Shepherd mix, and I give half teaspoon of lion's mane, reishi, turkey tail, and 5 Defenders daily. Is this too much? Any negative long-term effects with giving these 4 mushrooms daily?
No, there isn't. I think I actually fielded this question on my own website, customer service. No, as we mentioned with the 5 Defenders, the synergy amongst the mushrooms is very good. And I assume you're getting a half a teaspoon of each of them versus all of them adding up to half a teaspoon. You don't give me the weight of the dog, but I think that what you're doing is fine, and it is not too much. We really rarely see any problem with giving larger amounts of mushrooms or multiple amounts of mushrooms at the same time. So I think you're doing okay.
Yeah, it's a reminder, like mushrooms are like functional foods. It's not like it's an herb where you can give, a toxic amount of or anything like that. You can cause gastric distress if you give too much. So you want to do it slowly, like Doc Rob said. But yeah, it's mushrooms are more of a food product, right?
Superfood.
There you go.
There's different labels we can use for them.
Yeah. All righty. So next question is, for 10-pound animals, can pet chews be cut in half? Do they need, and I'll add to that, do they need to be cut in half?
No, but you might want to start low and slow, with your pet. And pet chews cut in half a lot easier than capsules. Don't worry about it. You can cut them in quarters as well. Yeah. For the relaxed mushroom chews, one thing that we did when we designed these was we made them crumble, which I like because you can kind of crumble them and mix them in with the food for a more reluctant pet. My cat comes up every morning and sits on the countertop next to the mushroom relaxed chew and asks me to get one out for her, and I crumble it up, and she eats, as much of it as she wants, which is usually about a half.
I love it. I love the cats are eating the chews, the relaxed chews. It's like not all cats, because they're cats.
Well, maybe, think, as you suggest, it may be the catnip that was in there. I put the catnip in.
I think,
But I think I'm going to start putting catnip in all of my chew formulas just to see if it helps with the cat.
I think you should, because, like when we first got the chews in, and, we needed to check for palatability. So we got the chews in March of 2022, and kind of sent them out to actually vet practices all over the place, because they see a lot of animals, and said, give them to when the pets are checking out, after they've had their visit. see if they'll eat a chew and report back to us and let us know, so we could get an idea like how many pets were eating the chews, how many pets weren't eating the chews, kind of it, because we didn't know if we had a palatable product when it first came out. And, the good news is that most of the dogs ate the chews, and the cats, surprisingly, with the relaxed chews, which, as Doc Rob mentioned, has catnip in it, a surprising number of cats ate the chews. But I remember I had columns that I had to make for, eat the chew, refuse the chew. I had to make a separate column for cats that played with the chew first and then ate the chew. So the cats would like rub their, some rub their face against the chews, etc. So anyway, yes, all that to say, Doc Rob, I think you should put catnip in the chews.
Yeah. Here's the interesting sidebar. It doesn't really have anything to do with our chews, but catnip has insect repellent properties.
Yeah.
And it's thought that one reason why when cats are given fresh catnip leaves or dried catnip leaves, that they don't just sniff it, they'll eat it, but they'll also rub themselves in it. And it's thought that may be instinctually a way to repel or protect them from insects. And
oh, how interesting.
Yeah,
I did not know that. Huh. Okay, that's very cool. Jamie has a question. Hello, Jamie. Jamie has a 5-year-old Shar who is getting big fatty tumors on her. What can we do to help without doing surgery? We had one removed a few years back, and now she has 3 in different places.
I've not, I hate saying this, but I've not had any success treating fatty tumors other than with surgery. It's fortunate that most fatty tumors are just more annoying to the pet parent than they are to the animal. They can, in some cases, rarely convert into a more malignant versus benign cancer. And if they're in a location that could interfere with motion of a joint, like if it's on the elbow or in the armpit or something, those could be reasons. We sure don't want to do surgery on them. And dogs do need to have dental procedures at regular intervals. And I always thought that was a good opportunity if they're going to be under, for one reason, to kind of do a few other things at the same time, so you can not have as many anesthesia experiences in a shorter period of time. But I wish I could tell you what to do. I've tried herbs. I've tried everything. I've looked at thyroid. Sometimes, my thinking is that a lot of it has to do with the processed fats that are in the pet foods that are a little bit toxic, and that they stimulate these cells, because the fats that you eat go to your fat cells. And if the fats that you eat have carcinogens in them, they could potentially ignite your fat cells to do that kind of a tumor. It's common. I actually have one on my back. I call it my little friend.
Yeah, and Heidi's mentioning that GMO foods feed lipomas, which I wouldn't be surprised about at all.
Either.
So yeah, it's as you mentioned, Doc Rob, the food related, definitely possible. And I agree with you. Like, gosh, I've been, well, you've been in the veterinary world longer than I have, but for me, it's been over 20 years, and on the integrative side, and we've tried everything. I've never really saw anything that shrank those tumors naturally. And yeah, I agree with you. Brooklyn has a question. I'm currently using 5 Defenders for my cat. He had surgery to remove a mass from his ear that turned out to be a malignant melanoma. What else can I add to support immunity and prevent a recurrence?
Well, I'm impressed, first of all, that your cat is taking the 5 Defenders. Maybe you're giving it to it as a capsule or giving the powder with some food. That's great to hear that. I wish more cats would. And if he can take the 5 Defenders, then I guess my suggestion would be to try the turkey tail, and see how much of that you could get him to ingest. If he has reluctance with a turkey tail, as we've been discussing about cats, then I would probably go to something like a Cordyceps or that. Melanoma does have a relationship to endocrine disorders and melanin production, and so Cordyceps can be a better mushroom for that. But turkey tail is known for its anti-cancer effect. Malignant melanoma is not a fun thing, and hopefully it won't reoccur.
Yeah. We send you all the best. And Linda was mentioning that her vet said to leave the lumps and bumps alone. The many dogs live with them. And yeah, absolutely agreed. But sometimes a lump or a bump can get somewhere. I
Yep.
know I had a friend who had a dog that had a big lipoma under the armpit, and it would just rub itself raw. And this dog was in a lot of discomfort. So it had to be removed. And like you said, Doc Rob, if it's around a joint or, if it's impacting quality of life, then you want to consider removing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a question about acid alkaline balance. So about acid alkaline balance in a dog's body, what is a healthy number? And does giving my dog some mushroom powder with their food daily help create a healthy acid alkaline balance?
I'm really happy to be the smart guy here. I don't know everything. And I think it's a good question, but
Yeah.
I really don't have the answer to it. I really have not been focusing on acid alkaline balances as part of establishing health. I know it's important, with some protocols and some approaches to disease. As far as what mushroom powder with the food to create a healthy balance, again, I don't want to give you information if I don't know that it's correct. I don't want to just guess for you.
Yeah. I remember, gosh, years ago, back when I was dealing with I had, well, Doc Rob, it. 25 years ago, I had cancer. I had ovarian cancer, and the acid alkaline balance. I one of the many things I did to support myself. I remember I read a book called "Alkalize or Die" was the name of the book. I remember that book and following the alkaline diet, et cetera. And I know there's alkaline water and everything, but yeah, it's interesting. I haven't heard a lot of talk about acid alkaline balance in the veterinary world. So
I can't answer that.
Yeah.
I always joke that I love taking these questions because I don't look at them beforehand. It's like playing Stump the Stars. Well, you stumped the star.
Yeah. I think it's the first time actually, and I don't know how many of these we've done that we got an I don't know from you.
Yeah.
It's refreshing actually.
I can't answer it right. I'm not going to answer it.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Next question. I have a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. One of them has MVD.
Mitral valve disease?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah. I do give the 5 Defenders capsule, but which of your supplements is most beneficial for heart disease, specifically mitral valve disease? Thank you.
Well, I don't know that I can say that any of our mushrooms have been studied for mitral valve disease in the dog. And I think the 5 Defenders capsule is, good support. As I mentioned earlier tonight, I do feel that Cordyceps mushroom is probably the best for cardiovascular support.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly with mitral valve disease, there's a lot of considerations, as far as, the progression, is it early MVD? Is it, bordering on congestive heart failure? And there's different, approaches to that. But I would say if you're wanting to add something to the 5 Defenders, then adding the Cordyceps would give you 6 great mushrooms to use that I'm sure would be supportive of the heart muscle in general.
Yeah. And if I can add, you might already know this, but Dr. Judy Morgan, this is kind of a special area. I believe she has Cavalier King Charles Spaniels. Yes. Many of them are dealing with MVD. And so I know she's got a Facebook, but she's very active on Facebook. If you're not already on her page, you might want to get on Dr. Judy Morgan's page because she often talks about mitral valve disease and how she treats her own dogs. There might be some valuable information there.
Good suggestion.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Tracy says, I have Crohn's disease. I'm thinking that's Crohn's. Yeah. What is your opinion on taking the 5 Defenders, and what else can you suggest I take as well? So this is a human question.
The lion's mane, because Crohn's disease is very closely related to IBD and ulcerative colitis, although they're definitely different entities. And so I would look to something like lion's mane and, of course, to work on your microbiome. Mm-hmm. There is evidence that CBD and possibly THC as well can be good for that. THC certainly in non-psychoactive doses. So you might want to look at hemp as another approach.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thanks, Doc Rob. And Donna's mentioning about the MVD. Yeah, Dr. Judy has some blogs on MVD too.
That's a good suggestion. I'm sure Judy will appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So the next question, my toy poodle suffers with separation anxiety when I leave the house or take her to the groomer. Any mushrooms to help with this? She's a little over 6 pounds.
Separation anxiety is a tough one. It can be very tough. My own Ollie suffers from that as well as PTSD. So, to say there's just one pill or a magic pill that's going to work is maybe not something appropriate. But sometimes just in order to get their attention or in order to do some behavioral modification with them, because there's some approaches to separation anxiety in terms of behavioral modification that might help stop cueing her to the fact you're leaving or you're going to the groomers, that would not cause her to kind of ramp up the anxiety, because they can get her, just like with pain, anxiety can have a wind up. And once they get wound up, it's really hard to wind them down. So my suggestion would be looking at the relaxed mushroom chews, perhaps starting with a half or a quarter of a chew, and give that on a regular basis, not just give that before you go to the groomers, because it really needs to kind of lower the general level of anxiety and help to reduce them from getting wound up. And like I've mentioned a few times before, I have found that, especially with Ollie, that the combination of the relaxed chews with CBD can help make that anti-anxiety effect more profound. But there are behavioral modification techniques that I think need to be coupled with the use of these mushrooms. For instance, when you go out the house, you pick up the keys. That's sound, or putting your coat on. There's things you do you're not even aware of that your dog knows. And he knows when, oh, she's doing that. She's going out. I'm getting freaked. So once you can learn those things, you can learn how to de-stress them or to stop them from being triggered by them, I guess. And so there may be, I don't actually have a resource to offer you, but I'm sure there are many resources out there of blogs and veterinarians, especially who are behaviorists, who can help you reduce that anxiety that she gets. It may not be able to eliminate it, but it may bring it down to a dull roar.
Yeah. We don't want to just put a Band-Aid on it by, I think that's absolutely right. Some sort of behavior modification.
Both.
Yeah, the combination. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Hope that helps. So Ronnie has a question. I have an almost 13-year-old French Bulldog. I'm thinking that she's saying has kidney issues and weakness. Just started her on 5 Defenders and Lion's Mane and relaxed chews. Mm-hmm. How much do I give, and should I add or remove any of these?
Okay. Well, I guess I would need to know what the weight would be to tell you exactly. And we have some dosing guidelines, on the bottles as far as getting them, and there's a range. So I would have you start, at the higher range, like let's say one capsule for every 40 pounds of body weight, and see how that does. Use that for a couple of weeks and see how that works for your bulldog. And then if that's not adequate, then I would bump that up. As I've been mentioning once or twice here for cats, the cordyceps is a good support for the kidney. So, and may have some benefit for hind end weakness. Mm-hmm. So you may want to add that on. We don't have cordyceps in the relaxed chews or in the 5 Defenders. So that would be something to add on to it. And that will help your aging French Bulldog.
Yeah, and it's 22 pounds. And she got the powder, is what she's saying.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, right. So the powder, I'm not as clear because we haven't really established dosing recommendations for the powder except through the beta glucan content. So 22 pounds, that's what, 10 kgs, which makes the math easy. And, so let's say there's an average of 25 milligrams of beta glucans per eighth teaspoon. No, quarter teaspoon, I think. Half teaspoon of the powder is 1,000 milligrams, right? So,
Yes,
okay.
correct.
So a half teaspoon of the powder then would have 250 milligrams. You'd be wanting to dose your 10 kilogram dog with about 100 milligrams a day. That would be about 10 mgs per kg. So you get 250 milligrams in half a teaspoon of the powder. So you would look at giving about a quarter of a teaspoon.
Quarter teaspoon, yeah.
There you go. Get the math in my head.
That was really good, Doc Rob. I'm impressed with you doing that off the cuff.
Well, I've worked in the ER, and sometimes you have to be able to think on your feet, although I'm sitting down.
Yeah, I mean, I have to be honest. The dosage, I get tripped up on the dosage questions, and I know a lot of people, a lot of us do, and there's always a lot of questions in our Facebook for Pets page about the mgs per kg and how to figure it out, and am I doing it correctly? And so, if y'all are having a challenging time with it, you are not alone. It's
go to the Facebook page. I'm starting to engage there. I've been reluctant because it's a rabbit hole once you get started, but I'm starting to engage there. I understand the importance of educating people and helping them with their issues. Yeah. So I can help with that too there.
Yeah, and also if people want to learn more about dosage recommendations on our Facebook for Pets page, so it's Real Mushrooms. It's Real Mushrooms for Pets page on Facebook. You can go there, and in our files section, we have a document called Rob's dosage suggestions.
Oh, okay.
So Doc Rob's dosage suggestions. So I've put it in there, and it's how you can calculate the dosage based on whether it's capsule or whether it's powder. So yeah, you did a great job on that, Doc Rob. So
well, it's lucky she was 22 pounds because that made it very easy.
Exactly. You lucked out there.
I did.
So So Heidi's saying, and she likes hearing about Cordyceps for cat kidney health. Yeah, we're pretty excited about Cordyceps for cats. And if anyone out there is using Cordyceps for cats, please, we love hearing feedback, because the more we hear back on what's working, what's not working, it helps us give our recommendations, because sadly, there's just not a lot of clinical studies in the veterinary field with mushrooms. There's four, well, maybe there's a few more now. Are there how many?
5.
5 now. There's only 5 studies total. And 2 of them are around turkey tail and hemangiosarcoma. So there, a lot of the use of mushrooms has been, anecdotal, and so, which isn't the best, but it's better than nothing. So
we start somewhere.
Yeah, we got to start somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So Heath is asking, have you covered what the best general supplements for dogs are, even those that are well and just to maintain their health? We have, but you can't cover that enough. So let's chat about that again.
Sure. Well, we're a mushroom company, so, and we believe strongly in the daily value of mushrooms as a wellness supplement. So, that goes without saying that I'm going to recommend a mushroom supplement, and probably our 5 defenders, since it's a kind of a shotgun combination. But in general, I think daily dogs need to be given some antioxidant. Now, mushrooms have antioxidant properties. They should be given some kind of a living probiotic, and if you give it with the mushrooms have fiber that is great food for the probiotic and for the microbiome. So antioxidants, probiotic, mushroom. And then, I would use an adaptogenic type of an herb, perhaps like ashwagandha. Yeah. And coincidentally, Nash, I've actually formulated our next product, which is going to be a daily general supplement. I'm not going to give them the name for dogs and possibly cats if they're willing. That will be just scooped on the food to make it nice and easy, and different size scoops for different sized dogs. And right now we're working with the manufacturer, trying to make sure we get everything together and they get all the ingredients in there that I wanted, which are all, branded and patented and proven through studies and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so excited about this next product that's coming out. It's like it cannot come soon enough.
Well, I'm frustrated. The manufacturers are swamped with the pet industry. The pet supplement industry is just booming, and it's hard to get these guys to work at the speed that we need them to. So be patient.
Well, and it just takes. I mean, there's so much to be done. It's not just, you don't just dump a bunch of stuff in a bottle. Like, there's labels to be made, and all the there's a lot to be done. But we're working very hard on it.
There is. Thank you for that question, Eve.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a great question. How do you use the reishi powder with dogs? I cannot mask the taste. Also, why is palm oil used in the chews? Thank you.
So the reishi powder with dogs has a very bitter taste.
Yeah.
You may not be able to mask the taste. That's one reason why I put it into capsules, to make it easier to give. We use things like other bitter things like espresso if we're humans, but I've heard that sometimes using salt can help mask a bitter taste, because the salt receptors and bitter receptors on the tongue are very close. And when you fill the salt receptors, the bitter receptors don't work so well. Of course, you have to measure that against how much salt you're giving your dog. And if it's got cardiac problems, probably not a great idea. So, I would maybe ice cream, yogurt, something, maybe canned cat food, things that the dog might be so hot to eat and gulp down that he's not going to taste it. Some dogs are picky and do sniff their food and are, particular. You may have to take the reishi yourself and get the capsules for them. And the palm oil is used in the chews because that was what our manufacturer used. It's a good quality, sustainable palm oil. And I believe it's the source of the medium chain triglycerides in this case. So I see no problems with its use.
Thanks, Doc Rob. Next question. Any studies or research on benefits of medicinal mushrooms for pets with idiopathic epilepsy?
No. In fact, we have very few studies, as Joni just mentioned, of mushrooms in pets. I'm trying to make that change. Studies are time consuming and costly, and it's hard to get individual companies to support studies, and NIH is not really that keen on funding studies for mushrooms in pets, at least not yet. So no, but the lion's mane itself has been shown in research in other species, laboratory animal species, and in experimental models for epilepsy, not clinical models, to be able to have an impact. So I would say, epilepsy is a complex disease. It needs a complex answer. I think medicinal mushrooms, lion's mane in particular, would be part of a program to address idiopathic epilepsy. I think the use of CBD, maybe CBDA, also could be very useful in that case. And there's some excellent Chinese herbs, and acupuncture itself can also be very beneficial for dogs who have idiopathic epilepsy. If it's the type of idiopathic epilepsy that's treatment resistant, then that's much more difficult for anything to work. And I recommend that if the dog is having seizures more frequently than once a month, that you seriously consider adding on a pharmaceutical, because the epileptic seizures, when they get really bad, can be fatal, and they're certainly very debilitating and hard to watch. And I don't think we should let our dogs suffer through those convulsions because we don't want to give them drugs. I think there's a time and a place for drugs, and I think epilepsy and seizures, and especially treatment-resistant seizures, is a time to use the drugs in a smart way. Maybe not blasting them with a lot, but using the drugs to some extent and then blending them in with the appropriate supplements, acupuncture, even food. We even know that there can be connections between food and the microbiome and epilepsy. So it's a big picture, and it really takes a good integrative vet to help you with that, to kind of blend conventional with alternative therapies.
Absolutely. Thanks, Doc Rob. Hope that helps.
Yeah.
Next question, which mushrooms are best for a dog who has
I got it.
support?
It's something to support the microbiome. The dog's got elevated ALT and immune system issues. Sounds like it was, anyway, sounds like a lot of problems. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I think that, all of these mushrooms are good for that. Reishi in particular has been very specifically studied for the liver. And so I think that, reishi would be a good choice. Certainly the 5 Defenders, which contains reishi, would also be a good choice. And as we mentioned, our mushrooms have a lot of fiber. The fiber is very supportive for the microbiome. We even have a study with lion's mane that was put in pet food in Japan, and they did studies on the microbiome in dogs and found an improvement with the use of the lion's mane. And it's more likely to have been the fiber in the lion's mane than actually the lion's mane specifically, in terms of the microbiome changes.
Yeah. Thank you, Doc Rob. Yeah, and I read these aloud because sometimes people listen and they're not reading, like maybe they're cooking dinner or something like that. So yeah. I know it can. I know you're a quick read, but that's why I do read these questions out loud. Mm-hmm. So, and the next question, which I'm going to read, my 16-year-old pug Brussels mix has Cushing's. Anything that will help with that? She weighs about 25 pounds.
Yeah, these are all tough diseases to deal with. Cushing's is one of the most challenging diseases there is, and it can be very debilitating and ultimately can be fatal to the dog and very difficult to live with as well for some of the symptoms they may have with the skin and whatnot. And mushrooms are not specifically rated for their ability to treat this disease. I read a lot of studies, and I haven't seen any talking about its impact on hyperadrenocorticism. But I would say, using a mushroom as part of a integrated program for Cushing's is not a bad idea. I know I'm hearing there's some studies showing that the use of flaxseed lignans combined with melatonin can be helpful for that. There's a standard process product that I heard a number of vets say it was working for Cushing's. I never used it myself. Maybe Joni wants to speak about that.
Are you talking about the canine adrenal support?
Yes.
Yeah. That's actually a really good Well, I love all the standard process products. They come in powders. I worked for standard process for a decade, and just like working with real mushrooms, so it was always great to get the positive feedback. And so, yeah, I actually had a dog with Cushing's that I had on the canine adrenal support and managed for a number of years. So I would definitely recommend it. Yeah.
Fortunately, we now have a pretty good drug for it that is not too expensive and is not too toxic. So it's, especially if the Cushing's is way progressed, you may want to use that and then follow up with the natural therapy so that you can then reduce maybe you could reduce the dosage of the drug.
Yeah.
But it's a complicated disease, and you can't really track the course of the disease without doing this complicated, Cushing's test, which is a fairly pricey blood.
Yeah.
I think, there's certain, anyway, I was able to interpret those tests fairly well.
Oh, good. Because I had a hard time with those tests. Mm-hmm. It always came back it might be, it might not be, it was very, very difficult.
3 different tests you do. I'm kind of a nerd, an internal medicine nerd.
Are you?
Yeah, I kind of like that. Those are tough cases. Cushing's are some of my toughest cases.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Yeah. So next question, any mushroom or other supplements you can recommend to calm down a dog going through heat? Oh, wow.
Good luck.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, yeah, you certainly can try our relaxed chews. You can try CBD. These are all things. They shouldn't interfere with the reproductive status of your dog if you're planning on breeding her. but it's a fairly natural thing. They're being pushed by all those hormones, because they want to get bred. That's why they're acting that way. That's nature at its best or worst. So I would say, look to the relaxed chews. Maybe you can add some CBD. Keep the boys away.
Yeah, for sure. Next question. Have you gotten many positive reviews on 5 Defenders for pets? Our dog is battling lymphocytic leukemia and is responding remarkably on it. Woohoo!
Yeah, we usually do recommend the 5 Defenders for leukemia or for lymphoma.
Yeah.
It's good to hear that. Joni, you're probably in closer touch with many of the reviews than I am.
Yeah.
And what is your answer to this?
I would say yes. I mean, we get so many good, we get so much good feedback on the 5 Defenders. I mean, we get a ton of feedback on Turkey Tail, crazy stuff. It's, tumors shrinking, or, the wonderful reports from their vets when they go for their follow-ups or stuff like that. I mean, it's not everybody, but we get enough of them that this can't all be placebo effect,
Mm-hmm.
And we get a fair amount for 5 Defenders as well, not just for cancer, but for allergies. We got one the other day about somebody that started their dog on 5 Defenders, and the dog seems less painful, is moving better, which I found really interesting, because we've been saying over the last, I think in every, this might be the only one where we haven't addressed an issue about pain. Except for we address some hind end weakness, but we usually say that mushrooms are not the go-to for pain, but
they can be part of a program for pain.
They can be part of a program, but not the main thing you would do for pain.
Yeah.
And we get feedback on the 5 Defenders helping with pain and inflammation. So
nice.
I think it all goes to show that every animal is different. Every animal is going to respond different. Mushrooms are going to work their magic in different ways with different pets and humans as well. So, yeah. So I hope that helps. Good. A copper storage disease question.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah. So,
well, we have just the answer for you.
So the question is, if a dog has copper storage disease, should he not be taking mushroom supplements?
So this is interesting. This is our third question, unless you're the same person who asked it before. With copper storage disease, it depending, of course, on how severe it is and how the animal presents, it's really a 3-pronged approach. And one approach is to use a chelating agent like deep penicillamine, and another approach is to add zinc, because zinc is kind of the yin to the yang of copper. So the more zinc you have, the more the body eliminates copper. And then you have to adjust the amount of copper in your diet to keep it below a certain level. I think 5 parts per million, 5 milligrams per kilogram of food. So we have nutritional analyses of our mushrooms, and we have them broken down in terms of how much copper they actually contribute per 300 milligram capsule, and how much they contain in terms of percentages. And really, those are meant to be used by your veterinarian in partnership with you to develop the appropriate nutritional approach, in addition to the other 2 parts of the approach to copper storage disease. Copper storage disease can be a fatal problem. It causes hepatitis, and it could progress to being fatal. So it's not something to mess around with, and it really needs to have a veterinarian help you with it, because it's pretty technical. The only way they can tell how much copper is in there is with a liver biopsy. So if you know your dog has copper storage disease, you probably already had a liver biopsy, because that's the only way we can diagnose it. And we have to do follow-up liver biopsies, which is an atrocious thought, in order to see how we're doing, or if it's getting better, it's getting worse.
Yeah.
It's not a fun thing to have. My heart goes out to you and to your dog especially. But
yeah.
at least we're giving you the tools to see if you can use mushrooms along with everything else in whatever program you have safely.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Doc Rob. And there seems to be more. I mean, even though it's pretty rare, there seem to be more dogs suffering from copper storage disease, or maybe it's just more well known.
I got an interesting email from a Canadian veterinarian friend of mine who was the veterinarian who asked us that question about copper storage disease level and copper levels in our mushrooms. And she said that she's been reading where with the introduction of chelated minerals into the foods, that we're still using the same amount of minerals as we did before they were chelated. And if you don't know, chelated minerals are more highly bioavailable than the inorganic minerals. And so she's thinking maybe we're just getting higher levels of copper because of these chelated copper levels, and that's causing the problem, not because there's some change in the dogs themselves. And that makes sense. You know, I have a friend who's a board certified nutritionist, and I introduced the two so they could discuss that.
Oh, interesting. That's fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. And oh my goodness, we're on our hour. We've that went by fast. And I just want to answer. I know Tracy wanted to know what is the functional mushrooms that comes in powder form that you put in your coffee. All of them. All of our mushroom powders are wonderful. Like every morning I have my coffee with our powdered lion's mane and tremella. Sometimes I put a little chaga in there as well, and it tastes yummy. So you just get your favorite coffee and put the put whatever mushroom powder, whatever flavor or whatever you're going for in there. So so I guess that's it for this Facebook Live. Did you have any final thoughts, Rob?
Well, there's a few questions we didn't get to, and they look like they need answering. So we'll try to. Well, if you want to stay on, I'm okay with that, but it's your time too.
Okay, yeah, let's do you're talking about Facebook user. You want to? You pick the question you want.
Heath Nash, who'd asked before about mushrooms and Addison's, and no, mushrooms cannot replace steroids for Addison's. Addison's is a very serious disease and potentially fatal, and unfortunately they do need the steroids. But the good thing is they're so deficient in steroids that by giving them the extra steroids, if it's done properly, it doesn't really impact the body as negatively as having the Addison's does. Okay, and then
I would like to start my dog on 5 Defenders for his overall health and lion's mane for his cognitive function. I also heard it can benefit his digestive health. Is it best to stagger them, like do one for a whole week and then the other for a whole week and keep doing it like that? Or is it recommended to stagger a different way? He has a collie hound and has a sensitive stomach.
I would use both at the same time, but I would start with a way low dosage, and then I would gradually ramp the dosage, both of them up over time. And that will help your collie hound to adapt to it. And yes, lion's mane can be very good for digestive health as well.
Yeah, and I just want to add it because I read the same thing. Liver treats, they're finding a lot of high copper in liver. And so people are giving liver treats as training treats. And so you have to be really careful. Liver is not something you should give a ton of to your pet. It should be given in small amounts.
Yeah, thank you for that. Would organic liver be better than than that? You would think maybe would. I guess I don't
know. I think it's Rodney. I think it was Rodney and Karen that posted. There's a new study out or something about liver treats and copper copper amounts. So anyway, and yes, lion's mane is best for memory.
How'd you remember that?
Okay.
She puts her lion's mane every day.
That's right. That's because I take lion's mane, and tremella is another great one for memory in my coffee every day. So I remember my name. I remember how old I am.
Anyway, this has been a lot of fun for me. I hope it's been helpful for all of you.
Yeah.
And we'll see you in a month.
Yeah. Usually the last Thursday of the month at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern time. that's probably what it's going to be for March. Although we're flying all over the place doing conventions and talks. I think we'll just be coming back from Fetch in Charlotte, so we should be able to do that that last Thursday of the month. But if not, we'll post when it is.
Yeah, cool. Well, this is great.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
And thank you, Jordan.
Jordan, thank you. We couldn't do this without her.
We could not do it without Jordan.